I am Amina, a daughter of Ibrahim and Fatima, born into a home where love and stability were the foundation of everything. My father, Ibrahim, was more than just the breadwinner of our family. He was our protector, our source of strength, the man who made sure that no matter how difficult life got, we would always be safe, always be well. He worked tirelessly, growing crops in the fields, his hands rough from the labor, but his heart warm with a deep love for my mother and me. My father was the rock on which our lives were built. When he died, I didn't just lose my father. I lost the part of me that knew security, that knew what it was to feel invincible. His death shattered everything. It wasn't just the shock of losing him, it was the emptiness that followed. I remember the day he collapsed in the field. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, when I heard the frantic shouting from outside. When I rushed out, I saw my father lying motionless on the ground. His face, usually so full of life, was pale, and his eyes were closed in an eternal slumber. The world seemed to stop that day. My heart stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't understand. How could this happen? How could he be gone just like that? The village doctor tried to revive him, but it was too late. I had no time to say goodbye, no time to tell him how much I loved him, no time to thank him for everything he had done for us. My heart was heavy with regret and sorrow. I had lost the man who had always protected me, the man whose presence had made the world feel safe. And now, I was left to face the world without him. But the grief didn't just take me, it took my mother too. Fatima, my mother, was not as strong as my father. She had always struggled with her health, but my father's love had given her the strength to keep going. But after he passed, her own health began to deteriorate. Her heart, already weak, could not bear the burden of the grief. I watched as my mother's once vibrant spirit faded before my eyes. She became frail, unable to get out of bed some days, her body trembling with the weight of her sadness. I was terrified. The one person I had left in this world, the woman who had raised me, the woman who had always been there for me, was slipping away, and I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't make the pain go away. I couldn't bring my father back. I could barely even keep myself together. I watched as my mother's face grew paler, her breath more shallow. I couldn't sleep at night for fear that she might not wake up the next morning. Every time she coughed or winced in pain, my heart would drop into my stomach, and I would feel this gnawing fear that I was losing her too. My world was crumbling, and I felt helpless. It was as though I was drowning, struggling to keep my head above water. But with every wave, I was pulled under deeper and deeper. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing day, my mother grew weaker. She could no longer cook or clean the house. She could barely sit up in bed, and every time she spoke, it was as if the words drained the last bit of strength from her body. The doctors said there was nothing they could do unless we could get her heart surgery, but the cost of the surgery was far beyond what we could afford. I couldn't bear to look at her anymore, unable to help her, unable to make her pain stop. It was a pain that clawed at my chest, squeezing my heart so tightly that I could barely breathe. I had always worked as a school teacher to support us after my father passed, but my small salary could barely cover our daily expenses. How could I ever afford something as expensive as surgery? I felt guilty even asking myself that question, knowing that there was no answer. The guilt of not being able to save my mother weighed so heavily on me that some days, I didn't even want to get out of bed. I felt broken, but I couldn't give up. I couldn't just sit there and let my mother slip away. So I fought. I did everything I could. I visited the local village elders, hoping they would have some idea, some way to help us. I asked for loans from anyone who might have some money, but the response was always the same: no one had the funds. I felt as though the universe was conspiring against me. My mother was dying, and I was powerless to save her. One afternoon, as I walked through the village, exhausted and emotionally drained, I came across Mr. Amadi, an elderly man from a neighboring village. Mr. Amadi had known my father well. They had worked side by side in the fields for many years. I had always admired him for his wisdom and kind heart, though we were never particularly close. But that day, seeing the distress in my eyes, he stopped me and asked how I was doing. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want to burden anyone with my troubles, but he insisted. So I told him everything: the loss of my father, my mother's declining health, the surgery she needed, and the hopelessness I felt in not being able to provide for her. As I spoke, my voice cracked, and tears I had been holding in for so long began to fall. Mr. Amadi listened quietly, nodding his head. Then, without a word, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the money that my mother needed for the surgery. It was more than I could ever have imagined, enough to cover the entire cost. I stood there, frozen, staring at him in disbelief. How could someone like him, a man with so little, offer me so much? But he simply said, "Your father was a good man. It's time someone returns the favor." That was the moment that changed everything. I rushed home with the money and took my mother to the hospital immediately. The doctors were amazed at how quickly we managed to get her the care she needed. The surgery was a success, and within days, I saw the light returning to my mother's eyes. She was no longer a frail, fragile woman lying in bed. She was beginning to regain her strength, her laughter returning to our home. In the months that followed, my mother's health improved, but something else had changed too. I had found strength in the kindness of Mr. Amati, in the selflessness of someone who barely knew us but chose to help anyway. I had been in the depths of despair, but because of one person's kindness, my mother's life had been saved. And I had learned that even in the darkest of times, there is still light to be found. I now carry the lessons of that painful time with me. I have learned that love and kindness are not always about grand gestures, but often the quiet actions that change lives forever. My journey wasn't just about the pain of losing my father or the fear of losing my mother. It was also about the power of community, the power of compassion, and the incredible impact one person's generosity can have on another's life. And so, in the face of loss, I found hope. In the face of despair, I found a reason to keep going. And now, I live my life with a heart full of gratitude, grateful for the love of my family, grateful for the kindness of strangers, and above all, grateful for the second chance I got to share with my mother. Thank you so much for listening to my heartfelt story, and I hope it brings hope to troubled hearts out there.
Woke up to the sound of silence in a world that feels so cold. I've been fighting through the darkness, trying to find my way back home. The weight of the world's been heavy, and the night feels so long. But I know there's something waiting, a light to guide me